Welcome again, super aficionados. This is Realm Warrior, and we are just a little over a week after the elections, and more election fraud, right? Keep hearing more and more, depending on who you're listening to, because a lot of people are blocking it. Now, I'm not going to go into everything. We already kind of covered the big stuff. Only covering one tiny little bit, just an itty bitty bit here on the computer side, all right? Because that's the one that's been kind of getting the most heat right now. There's also great interest to me because that's my job is computers. I do computers. That's what you guys see me doing all the time on these YouTube videos is me playing video games. I know a thing or three about computers. So anyhow, we have this, on our last video we were telling you about the software that was used for counting at these polling centers called Dominion. And anyhow, it in one county had, or one polling center, whatever it was, counted over 6,000 votes for Biden that were supposed to be Trump's. And somebody was doing the whole hand count thing and figured it out, that it was wrong. And so immediately they said, oh, it must be a computer glitch. Well, now more research has been done. More digging in has been done. And by the way, it's not just there that this happened. Sure enough, like I said before, sure enough, multiple polling locations had the exact same glitch. All right, one of the big ones was actually in Chicago. Okay, heavily liberal location. Heavy. So one would think that they wouldn't need to cheat to win Chicago, which makes me even more suspicious. But anyhow, so they have some scientist guys go in there, and they do some really weird sciencey stuff to test the software because they can't see the code. No one's letting them see the code, so they decide to do their own thing and see a trend that when votes are counted, I can't remember exactly what the terminology was that they used. I know the idea behind it, the coding you would need to do to make it happen. Basically, what would happen is if Trump got too much of a lead, Biden all of a sudden started getting polling up. Okay. Why would you do that? What purpose would that serve in a legitimate, non-thieving, non-stealing, non-cheating software? What would be the purpose? Well, there wouldn't be one. That makes no sense. This is not a contest that you're trying to have on a TV show where you want it to be close to get the viewers to watch more and get more jazzed up and whatever the heck else. This is real life. So if somebody's winning by a large margin, they're supposed to win by a large margin. It's not supposed to be close. So, and they did it in three of the top counties in Illinois and found this trend to occur. And anyhow, when I decided to go looking into it, because I'm like, ooh, this is really interesting, but I'm hearing this, and I always like to go double check, find a few different sources. What really isn't out there? I mean, it is buried. But how I knew that it had to have some truth to it is when I went out there, and the first thing that I looked up, the first thing that came up was they have all these multiple articles on Google. You can go in there and go with Google and just put in Dominion voting software or something like that. That's what I Googled. And the first thing it has is like, oh, here's some articles about it because it's recent in the news. The first two articles up there, one was from the New York Times, the other was from the Chicago Tribune. Both of them had the exact same headline and the exact same picture, which is one of two things, or three things. One, lazy reporting by one of them, because you decided to copy and paste the other guy's story, or at least the headline and picture. Two, plagiarism, which is basically the exact same thing of being freaking lazy. Or three, you're trying to tell the same story. And normally when people are trying to tell the exact same story, that usually means they're lying. If two different people tell the exact same story, usually, not always, but usually means they're lying. And let's face it, it's the media. They've been lying for a while now. So yeah, we're batting about 99% chance this is going to be some cheating fraud here. Anyhow, I decided to pull up the New York Times story, and I did look through the rest of the headlines. It was more all lies, all fake news, conservatives, right-wing nut jobs coming up with false accusations. Same thing they always tell us, right? We're always full of it. But immediately go in there, look at the New York Times article. I knew I wasn't going to believe half of what they said. The fact that they got the software name correct is probably about as far as I'm going to trust them, and barely then. But one of the first things they went out there, first off, they didn't have the 33 states or whatever we reported last time. They just said it was in 5 counties in 2 states, Michigan and Georgia, which we already know is more than that. Pennsylvania has also been claiming it, and obviously Illinois with the Chicago testing stuff. So, and that story came out yesterday. The article that I was reading. But anyhow, that was the only places they're reporting, and they said those are the only areas that this supposed glitch occurred. And of course, they were saying it wasn't a glitch at all. The software was working perfectly. Software's working perfectly. What does that mean? So read through it. Well, first off, they wanted to say not all the things that were in doubt for votes was by this particular software. There's multiple pieces of software out there. All right, now I'm a thinking man. I like to think. Thinking is what I do. I like to scratch my head when I hear things. First thought comes to mind is you had multiple counties in your state having different software? Why would you do that? Who does that? I'm going to have, and just think of it. Just think about it. Just quick thought here. I have 50 some odd counties in my state. I'm going to buy different software for different counties. Reason. Yeah, I can't come up with one. Why would you do that? It's way cheaper and way easier to just buy 50 licenses for the same software. Or whatever it is. So why would you have different software for different counties? Now, a counter argument could be that, well, the counties purchased it, not the state. Okay. Not sure what the law is on that. I'd like to take a look at that. But why would this county decide to use a different one than that county? Because the counties, they're not, divided by a giant gulf. They're talking to each other. Hey, what software did you get? Oh, I got this. Got a really good price. They're usually going to be using the exact same thing. It's kind of like Windows. Windows is a good one. All right? No matter where you go, government-wise, you know what software they're going to be using. It's always going to be Windows. They're not going to use Mac. It's too much work to have multiple different pieces of software across multiple counties, multiple states, whatever. It's too much, especially for your software nuts. So they're going to all go Microsoft. It's just easier. Some of them for like specialized systems, they might use Linux because they need that special configuration, but none of them are going to go Apple. It's just not going to happen. But on top of that, they're all going to use the same versions for the most part. Maybe outside 1 or 2 version types. So let's say, let's pretend that a version comes out every month. That's not true, but let's pretend for a moment that it is. So some counties might be 2 months out of date. Some might be, bleeding edge. It's whatever the latest update is, somewhere in that ballpark. All right, but it's always going to be within the same OS range. And they're all going to be Windows 10. Nobody's sitting on 7. Nobody's, except for, again, you're going to have those onesie twosies out there. It's going to happen. But that's what you're going to buy. It doesn't matter if it's being purchased by the state or the county. They're going to buy the same software. It's just the thing. So why would you go to multiple companies to buy the software to do the same job? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. At least inside states. Now, if it was 2 different states buying different sets of software, I could believe it. Some states, they might be trying to buy software that supports their local economy. All right, that's a thing. That is a thing. So I could see that. But counties, I'm not buying it. It just doesn't seem right. But anyhow, so that was the first thing they threw out there, is that it was not all the same software causing problems. So it couldn't possibly be a giant collusion theory. Right, okay. Anyhow, and then they went in there to say that for the Michigan one, which is the one that's got the biggest spotlight on it, the biggest target, I guess you could say, on it, because this is the one that that everybody was able to catch wind with, finding out that there's something crazy going on here, was that the the individual going in there when they did all the things and then found out it was 6,000 votes counted wrong. Well, somebody else went in there from apparently the New York Times, I don't know who, but they said, oh, no, it wasn't the software's fault. The software is not to blame. Don't blame the software. Okay, this is kind of like victim blaming, I guess. Don't blame the victim. Okay. But anyhow, don't blame the software. They said it like 3 times before they finally got to the nuts and bolts, which was that the ballots were different. The ballots were slightly different versions. Okay, going back to the thinking game again. Same state, same count. Heck, this is the same polling center. In one polling center, why would you have 2 different versions of a ballot? What sense does that make? Answer, none. All right, the only time you would ever do something like that, especially with these Scantron type of ballots, the only time you have something different, something slightly off, is flipping answers around. Yeah, I said answers, as in a test for a high school or college or whatever, to stop cheating from happening where everybody, looking over the shoulder to find out, hey, what would you write down? Oh, looks like the upper left one for our number 9, I'll do that too. That's the only reason you would do it. You wouldn't do that on a ballot, it's too much work. And on top of that, if you did do something like that, you would also write down somewhere in the bottom or the top or wherever you could find it, version A, version B, version C, whatever, so that when you went in there and graded the darn thing, you would know which one to use a score sheet on, because they're not going to read the answers either. They're going to A, B, C, D. I've actually had a teacher do that once where I went wrong, 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 and then stopped about 4 answers in, because they're going, you can't be wrong 4 times in a row. This is a smart student. And then, whoops, grabbed the wrong answer sheet, my bad, and went and remarked it, and put a little explanation, sorry, grabbed the wrong answer key or whatever. Okay, that happens. It does happen once in a while. Sure, that's human error right there. But if a county polling center, whatever, was doing that, where they're like, well, we don't want this guy to copy this guy's answers for his ballot, who gives a flying hoot if he does? It's his wasted ballot if he's like, I'll vote for whatever that guy's voting for. I don't care. What's it to you? Who cares? But anyhow, so slightly different. If you're doing that, you would still write in there version A, version B, and your poll people who are supposed to be checking these things and feeding them to the computer would be looking for version A and version B. On top of that, if you wrote your software correctly, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, if you knew there's going to be multiple ballot versions, you'd have somewhere on that piece of paper to help out these guys some kind of, barcode or whatever that it would read to say version A, version B, version C, or whatever, so that it wouldn't do that. It would, this is version 5007. This is where the answer's supposed to go. Tally that way. So somebody somewhere screwed up miserably, and yes, I still blame it on whoever programmed the software. That was one of the things that really got me. How I immediately knew something was wrong here was when they were saying, don't blame the software. Multiple times, don't blame the software. Software is never wrong. A computer does exactly what it's told to do. And yet, it does do these things called errors. Yeah, errors. It does error out, as in makes mistakes. Usually you could, again, try blaming it on the programmer, where they didn't do a particular fail-safe type thing. It's called a catch exception. But anyhow, it can do things where it's going through its thing and then puts something in the wrong spot and then can't find it again, or it's tabulating wrong or whatever. More programmers in the pot, the more likely something like this happens. So you're supposed to do what's referred to as debugging to kind of go through the code and make sure that stuff like that doesn't happen. But even if you just have one programmer doing it, they can forget what they did way up here in the code, and when they're writing down here, they do something else. There's all kinds of things. The program will make mistakes. And if you are one of our gamers that like to watch my channel, you can see that happening all the time. It's called a glitch. Right? If you need a reminder of what that looks like, let's go back to Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed 3. That was some terrible stuff that we found in there. We weren't even reviewing it for that. We were just playing the game and went, what the grief? What the grief, Ubisoft? And they're, out there to make money, as in great gobs of it. So they kind of have to have their stuff together if they want to make more money later. So if they can't even figure that kind of stuff out, then people doing this stuff, I kind of hesitate on whether or not it's legit. But anyhow, so we have other software out there that apparently was doing something similar, but it was always blamed on the human beings. Always related to human error. Everybody said, nope, humans did it wrong. Why did you try to make something so complicated that it would make it that difficult for the human beings to figure it out? Especially since all they do is take ballot, put in scanner. It scans. That's it. That's all it's supposed to do. Why does, if I put everything into a computer program, the purpose of the computer program is to make my life easier. That's the whole point. So why is it that it's the human that's blamed if the computer is written in such a goofball way, or the computer program is written in such a goofball way that's that easy to goof up 6,000 times in one polling center? Just a few thoughts. Just some thinking here. Using the brain cells. Now what does this mean? Well, because we do have multiple counts of fraud, multiple counts of the software screwed up counting, a lot of places are going to what's referred to as a hand count. Now, I would prefer if they actually sat there, 1, 2, 3. It would explain, especially when you're talking about Nevada, what's taking them so long to count votes. But anyhow, what they're going to do, what they're now doing, especially in Georgia, is they're actually going to sit there and look at every single ballot. One, verify that's done legally as best they can, which a lot of people are going out there, yeah, you're not going to be able to prove it's fraudulent. Yeah, I think someone's going to be able to figure it out. I think some people are going to have a good idea when you have a fake ballot and when you don't, because they have these things marked in certain ways that say when it came in. Okay, especially when you have these people like, oh, just backdate it. Just backdate the vote. Somebody's noticing that. But anyhow, so they're going to go in there and they're going to do a recount by hand. So what they're going to do is going to put them into two great big piles. Trump, Biden, Trump, Biden, Trump, Biden. Of course, you're going to have the itty-bitty smaller piles for, whatever independents or whatever. But nobody cares about them. So that's probably all going into a third pile of, don't give a darn. And if that pile happens to be big enough, then they might count it. But since it's probably going to be like a stack that big, and the others are going to be like that big, yeah, it's probably just going to be, don't care. Yeah, so you're going to take those, and then they're going to put them into a counter thing. And it's kind of like the little dollar machines you might see at banks, where it just goes, okay, there's $5,000 in here. Because we know, or there's 5,000 bills in this stack. We'll go with that. So then you can do a little quick coding to say, these are $100 bills, so, you got $500,000 in here. But anyhow, so all they're going to do is they're going to put in a little counter, it's going to do the exact same thing. Okay, it's 5,000 ballots in this stack. All right, so that's 5,000 for Trump. And they're going to do it again and again and again and again until everybody's counted up. Okay, that's how many's for Trump, that's how many's for Biden. Now, that being said, if every single fraudulent vote is counted and none of them are taken out, then you're probably still going to have Biden winning. That's the upshot. That's the thing that a lot of people are cautioning people to be careful about. And they're basically kind of just, game's over. Just suck it up. No. Go in there. Dig. If you do have crowds coming in there saying, I'm not saying one or two, crowds, hundreds of people are saying, yep, saw this county doing this. Yep, saw this county doing that. This postal worker was doing X. Whatever. There's tons of people coming out there saying, and signing, but, holds up in court of law if it's signed, saying, I witnessed this, I witnessed that. That's a lot of people involved in a perjury trap, if it's all lies and fake news. In fact, just kind of strange spin on it, just a thought that occurred to me. Like I said, I think, got to use the old melon here, but it's one of the things that somebody actually told me once, long time ago, about how to prove that the Catholic faith was real. And I know for those of you out there who ain't Catholics, you're like, oh my gosh, what the heck? It's just something interesting to think about. Right? It was just kind of a mental game, a little thought process to kind of run through. And, take it at your own will. Just use it and kind of, just think about it, ponder it, and I'll leave you with that to think about. But anyhow, one of the things that this guy told me was that this Catholic faith, all right, is a bunch of nut jobs, a bunch of guys that believed somebody died and then rose from the dead. They went to all the work to hide the body. They They moved a giant stone that had some wax seal on it, and some pyrotechnics or whatever to scare off the soldiers who were half asleep there or whatever. Moved the body, stole the body, buried the body somewhere else that nobody could find anywhere, claiming he had risen from the dead, and then we're deciding to lie about it to the point of death. How far are you willing to go for a lie? Are you willing to die for a lie? This is kind of a similar thing here. How far, not to say that any of them are going to die on it, some might consider it, political suicide or whatever, but how far are these guys willing to go for a lie? If they're willing to go to court over a lie they knew was a lie, maybe it's not a lie. I mean, let's take a look at the Mueller case, just to give you some side evidence here to help prove the point. Mueller case, the Russiagate scandal, the Ukraine phone call scandal, all of that, the impeachment. Every single one of them testified to X, Y, and Z. This happened, this happened, this happened. Trump's evil. Throw him out, right? Okay, cool. Here's all this evidence that we need that says he's evil. Now we need you to testify in court. Every single one of them told a different story than the evidence reported. They all said what we already knew. Nope. Didn't find evidence. Nothing happened. There wasn't anything there. Everyone. Because they knew they were going to get caught in their lie. Because they knew it was a lie. You can't get caught in the truth. It's not a thing. If you tell the truth, you've got evidence to back it up. Or no evidence to refute it. Either one works. But when you lie about something, there's going to be evidence that's either going to prove you're lying or show the lie is false. Alright, so you could either say that you're going to either have a lie that, because that's kind of the same thing. Let me rephrase it as, you're going to have a lie that either gets proven wrong or you have no means of backing it up. They're not going to be able to prove anything. So these guys going to court with their lie, according to the media. They're all lying. They're all full of it. They're, giant conservative Republican conspiracy theory. They're going to go to court at some point, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, although, let's face it, it's the court system. They're going to go to court, and somebody's going to ask, the jury's going to ask, well, not the jury, but the lawyers and the prosecutor and the judge and whoever the heck else, what happened? I'm going to say, this happened, X happened, I saw, witnessed, blah, 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 blah. And the prosecutor is going to have to go in there, and here's extra evidence besides these witnesses. Witnesses aren't always the best course, because, again, witnesses can lie, they can misremember. But when you have like 60 people all seeing the exact same thing, and then add to it videotape, pictures, recordings, that makes the court case. Now, an interesting side note here is that all this court casing stuff is going to do is prove whether or not fraud was committed. That's it. It's actually up to state legislatures to do some work on validating the vote, validating what happened. So, yeah, they're going to have to figure out how they're going to do that. There's a lot of stuff here to look at. There's a lot of details to get into. Basically, a lot of people are going to have to go digging into the weeds. But they are going to have to figure out how to tell the fraudulent votes from the real ones. I don't care. Okay, I do care. But for the most part, don't care if Biden does win, if it's legitimate. But as I said before, this is like people buying cheats for video games and then barely winning. Barely. And right now, it sounds, if you were to just take this snapshot in time and see that Biden's up 280 or 290 or whatever, it would seem like, oh yeah, he won handedly. But how long did it take him to get there? It took a week extra. And there was plenty of evidence, not just from regular individuals, regular grunts on the ground, but governors, senators, whoever else, politician types, who you could tell were doing something wrong. They're saying, nope, backdate votes. Oh, this vote, it was supposed to have come in on this date. It didn't, but we're still going to count it. Can't do that. That's cheating. That's just straight up cheating. And like I said, you do all this work to just push them over and then decide because the American people ain't going to buy that story, you're going to give them an extra one. But the one state you decided to choose to give them enough to really push it over the edge was Pennsylvania. Up until Friday, he was winning that one, and then all of a sudden, lost. Yeah, nobody believes you. Nobody. The only people who believe you are the people as crazy as you or are in on it. So, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. We'll see what happens. As always, I'll keep you guys up to date as best I can. But we're going to try with this little webcasting experience here to do something other than COVID once in a while. These are just, hey, here's some thoughts I had today. Here's some analysis of the news. Hopefully they'll give us other news to talk about later. I know they've got some COVID stuff out there right now. Pfizer saying 90% validity behind their newest vaccine. And everybody's like, oh, that means we're getting a vaccine right now, right? And within the next couple of weeks, as soon as it gets approved, I'm going, no. Can't have that. That's not going to happen. Why not? Simple. Very simple. What keeps you in control? Fear or hope? Fear of a deadly pandemic? Hope in a vaccine that's going to cure you? Because unless you're of a good, stout faith, which has been eroded over the past few decades, a lot of people are going to just stick to the fear. They're going to be scared more than they're going to hope. Because if people were running on hope, we wouldn't need the vaccine. They'd be going, I got this. I can handle this thing. Sure, there might have been a little bit of fear originally, onset type stuff. We talked about that a lot, about how a lot of people were initially scared of it because they didn't have all the facts. Well, now we have the facts. The only people who are still afraid of this thing are either the people who are complicit behind it to keep people afraid, or the people who are putting up the blinders. I don't want to see nothing here. People who want to be afraid, who prefer to be afraid. So that's just one of those things to kind of think about. Now, I think, personally, there's still plenty of people out here that have hope. Because if there wasn't, we wouldn't be having people out there saying, recount the votes, fact check, get all this hackery, cheatery out of the road. Those guys have hope, and there's a lot of you. So keep up the hope, but the people in power, which, if it's the way they think it is and the way they want it to be is Biden, he doesn't want you having hope. That's against the agenda. We need to have you in fear so that you trust the government to tell you everything you want to do. It was already announced, at least I heard it today, it might have been announced yesterday, don't know. But it was announced that Biden's already got an idea as soon as he takes office, is he's going to put another 4 to 6 weeks of stay-at-home orders, wear a mask. Everybody, doesn't matter what state, everybody's going to lock down for 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, because we already tried that and it didn't work. So let's try it again. Maybe this time it'll work. Get out of here. It's your shenanigans. As always, I hope you enjoy. Stay safe out there, and not just from COVID. I'm also talking about these rotten looters and rioters and all them other crazy shenanigans they got going on. And we'll see you back here. This is Realm Warrior, signing out.